Thank you very much. Good morning. Oh, what a lovely looking crowd, the men included. I love this title. You know, when I was approached by IMDA to be the moderator for this session, I told them I want something that's specific dealing with women, and they say, you've got it. So how do we reimagine the roles of women in tech? And I cannot think of a better panel than what I have here. So what I'm going to do is everyone has their CV, so we are not going to get there. But I thought it would be so wonderful if they themselves share a little snippet of their own journeys of getting into tech. So, you know, without further ado, I'm going to ask Minister Josephine. And, you know, every one of you, them know about your different ministries. But, you know, Minister Josephine, can you kind of share with us, given your background in, you know, the humanities, how did you slowly pivot into a role in tech?
Thank you very much, Annie. And let me say how much I look forward to our discussion, particularly that we have on the panel, you know, Bolar, we have Jessica, we also have, you know, Her Excellency Minister Makashima Karen, dialing in all the way from Japan. Karen has started with a question that I've never really thought about. You know, in my entire professional life, it has been what I call gravitation. I've just gravitated towards certain roles. I guess it kind of helps that, you know, back in school, I wasn't averse to studying the STEM subjects and actually was reasonably good at them. And then in university, I did do economics, but I took a major in statistics, which, as you know, is actually very mathematical. And I enjoyed it a great deal, and for some reason, I think I did reasonably well too. In my professional life, I suppose I just ended up gravitating towards roles that became more and more technical in nature. I remember that when I was first appointed to the Ministry of Transport, I was asked to look after aviation and maritime. And actually, my first exposure to cybersecurity was in aviation because we were moving towards such an intense use of technology for air traffic management systems. And I don't mean to scare you, but you know, we fly around a lot. I mean, in COVID times, it was difficult to do so, but so much of our professional lives involves visiting and engaging with international counterparts. And each time I'm up in the air, I'm now much more conscious of, you know, what it takes to manage the air traffic, you know, efficiently, but also safely. And that was the exposure. I guess then, you know, when eventually I ended up in the Home Affairs Ministry, I didn't even think about it. It was my colleagues who pointed out to me that until I appeared, you know, in the Home Affairs Ministry, actually amongst the political office holders, there had never been a woman. And I was the first. It just didn't occur to me. I think because by the time I got to where I was asked to perform these roles, I had already seen many women succeed in technology-related roles. Women like Jessica, women like, you know, Li Chu, who is now in the ST group. They've really been trailblazers, and actually many more before them. So it comes as no surprise to me anymore, and I don't think in the future it will be actually any surprise when you see a woman appointed right at the top of a technology company.
Very nice, Minister. And I'm so glad that you shared that actually digital is not the only pathway to tech. And we can actually look at tech from different verticals. And these days, everything is actually tech-related. But I'd like to move to His Excellency, Ms. Bolo. And I think for you, I love Mongolia. Been there. And it's a young country, you know, with tremendous potential. So if you were to address our audience today, share with us your own pathways, all right, given that you're also from the humanities side, and how do you look at your role now in, you know, trying to get the young country to be more digital and more tech-oriented, especially for the young girls?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and it's my pleasure to be sitting here with my role models and a lot of women that I look up to. And I'm sure in the audience as well, there are a lot of inspiring and encouraging women here. For me, the way I want to start this from my high school, because I was good at STEM, like Josephine. And, but traditionally, the education system, at least at the time, encouraged me to pursue more traditional degrees because it's safer for women. It's not because my teachers didn't like me and said, oh, you should pursue more traditional degrees. It's because they cared. And the traditional mindset was more like, for women, it's safer to go into, you know, become a lawyer or go into economy, or we had this stereotype. So I did a degree in international relations. I finished my high school when I was 14, finished my undergrad when I was 18. I went into international development sector. I worked with the ADB, World Bank, UN, EBRD, a lot of organizations until 2019. And in 2019, I was forced to come back to Mongolia because of my parents. So my brother, I have only one brother who lives in the US. So my parents didn't want me to move somewhere else because I had already lived in other places. And in 2019, coincidentally, I implemented a project in Mongolia called Digital Pathways with the University of Oxford. And we got funding from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it was digital readiness assessment. And when we did the expansive research, we tried to identify the factors that are kind of closing or slowing down the pace of technological development in Mongolia. And turns out that the government was the biggest bottleneck. The private sector, startups, NGOs already moved much, much, much faster with technology. And it turns out that the government was the factor that was slowing them down. So we had an idea for e-Mongolia. I had the concept, I pitched the concept to current Prime Minister and current President when they were Prime Minister and Cabinet Secretariat, and they offered me the job. But I think the biggest passion, the reason I joined the government was just to deliver e-Mongolia. And after I joined the government, when you lead the organization, ICT organization, it's not only digitalizing government services, it has much more. We oversee space issues, cybersecurity, digital literacy, a lot of issues. And you know, one thing led to another, and more ICT sector has become very broad, and it creates a lot of opportunities. And the way I see technology is, it's a second chance for many developing countries. So for countries which are underdeveloped or lost their economical opportunities, I think these countries can use technology to have second chance to accelerate their development. And for that reason, I'm getting more and more passionate about technology in general, but also I'm very passionate about bringing girls into technology.
So we'll do that second session in a little while, the next round. But I love it that your parents made you come back to Mongolia, okay? And I think that's the gain for a country like Mongolia. Jessica, seated here, you know, all of us have come from different backgrounds, but you are a true blue tech person. So, but you did do a sting outside in McKinsey, so maybe you could take us through your own pathway.
Sure. I can't say I'm true blue tech. I think I started off as with most Singaporeans, having STEM education. Math and science to my dad was very important, and I was very fortunate to do electrical engineering, comm science in MIT. After which, I actually chose not to join the tech industry, because actually when I was in the US, it was the dot-com period, and chose to join McKinsey. I was McKinsey for 13 years because like minister, I took economics and I thought business was very interesting. My dad actually didn't really talk to me for a year because he said, what a waste of what you've done at MIT. And then I think almost by fortune, I think about 10 years ago, so I was at McKinsey for 13 years, and then 10 years ago, I joined Ping An to be both group CIO and also CEO of Ping An Technology. And for the past 10 years, I've kind of reverted back to the tech roots. I think, where, first started, I think when I joined, we had about 3,000 developers. We now have 11 tech companies and 34,000 developers. So I've reverted back. But I would say I'm not the most techy person. I think my strength in the tech business is that, I understand how it works. My 13 years at McKinsey across a variety of industries and business, how you apply it. Because I think technology, as both Professor Ko and Minister were saying, actually is technology, the lines are blurring, right? I have 2 girls. I said you have to learn coding, like what Minister Bolar was saying, because this is a language to speak to computers. Just like you learn Japanese, Korean, and other, you need to learn how to speak to computers. And you can use it in a variety of ways. So I don't think education or experience should be a barrier to, thinking about something in technology. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And I'm going to go to our wonderful panelist, Minister Karen in Japan. And very good morning, Minister. I'm also very intrigued by your background. You actually have a PhD from George Washington University. And again, it's more in the economics area. So can you share with us your own pathways to be looking after the digital ministry right now?
Thank you very much for having me today. Unfortunately, I cannot join you at the venue. It seems to be a very wonderful venue with the gatherings of many people. Because of the Japanese diet schedule, I'm joining this panel through online, but it is part of the good way to use the technologies. We can easily attend the meetings through online system. And the Digital Agency of Japan was launched last September, and I was appointed as the second minister of Digital Agency last October. So it's been about 9 months since the Digital Agency was launched, and I'm leading this agency, so much fresh and new agency of Japan. And this is my 10th year as member of the parliamentarians. So as parliamentarians, I've heard many voices from my districts. And my districts includes industries from agriculture to tourism, and so much variety of industries are the main key industries of my districts. It's so much typical one Japanese city and town. And when I hear the voices of the people as a politician, they say we need to improve the cost performance, or we need to improve the technologies. These voices are heard from many industries. So I thought the answer should be the DX, digital transformation, or using the technologies, or digitalizations. So I thought that the basic idea to improve the lives of the people of Japan should be through the digitalizations and the quick way or more speedy way to realize their dreams or their goals. That is a background for me to join the core member of the digitalizations of LDP, Liberal Democratic Party of Japan, which is the ruling party of Japan. And the topic of the digitalization is relatively new. Among the LDP parliamentarians, I could join the member of the committee, and that was the starting point for me to involved in more deeply about this topic. And I think that should be shared among the people of Japan and also other countries too. And we've learned a lot from the pandemic of COVID-19, and we need to use these lessons to the next steps of digitalizations.
Thank you very much, Minister. And this is great because this first introduction have actually shown to us that tech is actually a horizontal, applied to so many verticals, healthcare, education, and everything else. But I'm going to focus the next round specifically on women. So I'm coming back to you, Minister Josephine. I think this year has been, very impactful for women because you are actually, chairing the white paper for Singapore women. And so for many of the ladies in the audience, if they are in mid-careers, what are some of the alternatives to get into the tech career? And if their kids are grown and they would like to get back into the workforce, what are some of the opportunities for them?
Well, I think it's a great question. Our MC had started this session by pointing out that there was a Boston Consulting Group report that was published in 2020 that said that of the entire tech workforce, women constituted 28% globally. We are a little bit better off in Singapore. We are at 41%. So it's a very good foundation, and I want to pay tribute to the women, who have been the trailblazers for, charting such a course for us in the technology field. And if it's not for their perseverance and their dare and their willingness to slog it out, I don't think we can maintain it at 41%. So I would really always start, in answering your question, at looking at what made it possible for this 41%, and then what we can do to retain more of them, and then actually to attract more women to come into tech and stay in tech. The first reflection I would say is this. We, as much as we want to improve and raise the, representation of women in tech, we really can't do it, in isolation. It has to do with how women are enabled to stay in the workforce in the first place. Because the reasons that women exit tech roles or tech companies is not so different from how women exit the workforce. And usually it has to do with the fact that, it's competing with your family commitments and you're unable to juggle both roles and quite often more than two roles because women are quite often caregivers not just to children but also to seniors in households. So if we truly wanted to enable more women in the entire workforce as well as in tech, then we've got to be able to focus on these issues of providing better for all kinds of care, whether it is childcare or elder care, making them high quality as well as affordable. And that's been a big focus for us in government. The second aspect of it is that I think it is also useful to recognize that there are certain aspects of the tech environment that provides, or rather that creates greater challenges for people who exit the workforce, even for a short while, simply because the developments are moving at such a fast clip. The landscape is changing so quickly. The skills, that you used to have, and then in a very short time, those skills may not be so relevant anymore. That part of it, I think, takes greater effort. And this effort, I believe, should come from the whole of society. What do I mean by that? I think the government certainly can play a part. Our whole movement towards a skills-based approach, in human capital development from more than a decade ago, I think that plays to the conditions within tech. It means that even if you have exited the workforce for a period of time and you want to come back, if you are able to get the skills, then there is a path, of return. And that's what we've been focused on. Make skills programs available, match them up with employers so that there is clarity of employment outcomes, and then reach out to a very wide variety of persons, including women, and let them know of these opportunities that exist. One last point I would like to add is that apart from the effort of the government in trying to curate such programs as well as making funding available so that they are accessible to a large number of people, and also the individual effort. The role of the employers are critical. I spent considerable time in the labor movement and also in my role as manpower minister. It's always been very prominent in my mind that for anyone who is thinking of investing time and effort, in any form of skills development, what the employers indicate at the end of this effort is very important. People are much more motivated when they know that these skill sets are in demand by employers, and there are employers, they are just, waiting to bring you on board, at the end of this investment of time and effort. So I think a collective set of efforts from everyone in society, and also women encouraging each other, and also roping in men as our allies and partners. I think this is what it takes.
Thank you very much. And Minister, the employer question will arrow to Jessica in a little while. All right, but Ms. Bolo, we actually have a good question that's coming up here, and I'd like to handle that together with what I'm asking you. So, being a young country, you have many young ladies. So how do you encourage them to take STEM classes related to STEM? So it need not be pure engineering or pure science. And we have a question here that says, totally agree with you that government and public sector tends to lag behind private sector in embracing and provoking women leadership. So is there an opportunity here for all of us to ideate on how to get more women leaders, all right, to step up?
Thank you. So for Mongolia, what we are doing is that we had to look back to the education system for long-term change. So I think it goes in for many other countries. The traditional mindset, is it still there? And do we provide programs for girls who want to pursue technology, or do we encourage them to pursue STEM? Etc., etc. So we have several programs for long-term and short-term. But one of my initiatives, which called Girls Coding Program, it's a boot camp, and we bring, Mongolia is very sparsely populated, and we bring girls from remote areas, from poor families, who are in their high schools, and we organize boot camp for them for 3 months. And for 3 months, every day we teach them 12 hours of classes, but still in the night they work hard and they study hard. So we started from last year, and we are expanding and adding the number of students we are getting from the countryside. But one of the things that I want to mention is that last year when we started, we didn't expect much result in such short amount of time. But right after they graduated from the program, so it's a still small program. We hired 30 girls, recruited 30 girls from countryside, and 9 of them are accepted to Ivy League schools pursuing software engineering degrees with scholarship. And the remaining, it's amazing how they're working for tech companies as part-timers. And one of the girls created the website for the government as well. And there was another girl, 2 girls actually came together, and they created an app where they give alert to their parents and friends when they feel unsafe or sad or uncomfortable. So this is the kind of thing that we as an adults don't understand about teenagers, especially teenager girls. But they try to use technology to solve their own problems and kind of expand it, give it to other girls as well. So this specific application is now being funded by the UN in Mongolia, because they thought that it was a great idea and they want to give it to more and more teenagers and help more children. But this is a small example of what happens if we invest into girls when they're at their younger age, especially. So there are ways to look at it, but I think the best way is to give them equal opportunities, give them encouragement when they need it. And most of the times when they need it, it's before they choose their professions, their career. For short term, for reskilling and upskilling, now we are starting a program called National Digital Literacy Program. And we are reskilling public servants, and majority of the public servants in the lower level career is filled by women. So when we say not only within the government, but tech workforce globally, we see the statistics and go deep dive into it. The highest earning jobs are filled by men. Mostly, it's I think it's 80% if I'm not wrong. And the administrative and more, a bit lower paying jobs are filled by women. And it's same for many big technological corporations. And still, the trend seems to continue. So we need to reskill and upskill women who are in their career and give them opportunities to shift their career.
Thank you very much. Your questions are amazing. It's coming up fast and furious. So I'm going to try and tell everyone that we shorten so that we could interact with the audience, yeah? But Jessica, you're not going to run away from this, all right? So the question is, how are the women in Penang Group, all right, encouraged to be developing their skills and moving up the career ladder so that they can have those opportunities to earn more?
So perhaps just a bit of stats. Ping An overall, our overall workforce is about 48% women. But unfortunately, our tech is about the same as average, so 30%, as I heard from Professor Annie's number. So in tech, I think we still have much to do. Right? The good thing about this is, however, we managed to keep the 30% even at the senior management level. Right? Because as Minister said, one of the things is that even though at the participation, you have to first get them interested, and then they have to choose this as a career, and then they need to stick throughout, which is actually the toughest part, because you're juggling, as Mr. Josephine said, so many commitments, right? So I think in tech, we managed to keep the 30% ratio both at the entire workforce level as a senior management level. I think there are two things that we are trying to do and continuing to do better. The first one is that I think as an employer, the most important thing is that you create flexibility to cater for different commitments, right? And I think this is frankly gender non-specific, right? Because everyone have different priorities, right? I have some male colleagues who would take time to go to the desert and run marathon, 2-3 times a year, and you got to accommodate for that. And for women, the same as well. So I think you have to create various rules, different part-time roles. So for example, because in China, the maternity leave is, in Shenzhen, is 25 weeks. That's a fairly significant time. How do you make sure that they can readjust back to work, that during promotion designation period, that these are not being taken into account. So we create flex roles that can move in and out. So I think this is what, as an employer, I'm sure many of us are trying to do, and we need to continue doing better. And I think the second one is much more actually on individuals. Actually, it's a choice. Many women leave to tech force not because they were counseled out, but because they chose to leave, right? Because it's not worth it. And this kind of balance is always in my mind. I evaluate every day, every year, because work is the bulk of my time. I said, this is, I see my boss more than I see my husband, and I tell him that. So, this is something, especially since I have been traveling for the past 20 years, it has to be something worth your while. So for me, it's made up very clear. I mean, pay is one thing, but it has to be meaningful work to justify, 75% of my time. And if it's worth it, right? The pain has to be always in the right balance to do that. And I think, therefore, as individuals, we do a lot of, I do a lot of counseling to my team, both women and men alike. I like to focus on what technology and the possibilities. I think you have to excite people about what is it they're doing. We talk about young girls. I have 2 girls. Well, my whole family is girls. I come 3 sisters. Me and my sister have all girls, so we all come from girls. Since they were primary school, I bring them to, in China to visit my lab I tell them not about, oh, you need to learn coding, you need to learn, like how we're taught in school, etc., but more about the things that we're doing, the healthcare. I had my girl design the elderly home care app. She has to go interview old people, including my parents, what they would like on their day-to-day, right? We talk about how they'd be used in education. You talk about coding, I brought them, you go use this, and then we taught English actually using coding, because a lot of the folks in rural areas, they are taught English, in the class of 40 people, and then everyone just repeat the same thing, but actually no one knows whether they're pronouncing it correctly, because perhaps even the teacher is not pronouncing correctly. So I had my girls designed, together with my team, a simple coding app that you can read, and it marks you on how accurate you are. And it was very fascinating, because the first few kids, they were really scared when they did it, because they had to come to class to read it. After the third kid got 90 marks, because I think the app actually overheard my voice whispering behind his ear, the whole class was so excited that everyone wanted to come out, right? I use the example because I wanted my girls to know, but my girls are proud humanities students, as they tell me, but I need them to know that technology is pervasive as part of our lives, right? And I think it's the same, in the workforce as well. I think it's not about, it's a career, but what am I doing? And there are various roles that we can carve out to make it worth the while. Yeah.
And something that Jessica said really struck a chord. For the longest time in human resource management, we have this idea of compensation and benefits. So this was maybe about 10, 15 years ago. No, actually, sorry, it's a lot longer than that. It's 20 over years ago, and I started to have children. And I was thinking to myself, there is nothing that you can do to pay me enough to compensate for the time that I can't have with my children. And I was also in an HR role at that time, and I said, no, I really think this is very old-fashioned. Compensation just doesn't cut it. I think it is possible for us to pivot to a different way of thinking, which is rewards and recognition. And I think it's not only for women, actually for almost anyone with options in life. We have to, find meaning in work. We have to find that this role that we are being tasked, is rewarding in some way. Is rewarding, not just in financial terms, but it's also rewarding in terms of, our sense of a contribution to society. So anyway, it's just that, when you said that, I think in particular for women who have to make a choice between, spending time with the children and with family, and spending time in our professional lives, that's really, a very high bar, high threshold that you have to cross.
I love it, but the clock is ticking. I'm going to go to Minister Karen. Minister, maybe you could summarize for us what are some of the initiatives in Japan to get women to come back to work and women to take up tech careers.
Thank you very much. As Minister Teo and our other panelists have mentioned, in Japan, we do share similar challenges. Many Japanese women are caregivers for the children or for the elderly people. And at the same time, they have the eager to work for and contribute to the society. So the key will be the work and life balance. So with the IT technologies and app skills, they can work from home, so they can pursue the work and life balance. So Prime Minister Kishida's one of the top priorities is to increase the number of the digitally talented workforce, especially for women. And we announced the plan for supporting women in tech career in this year, in this April. And we set the target number and year, that is a 2.3 million by 2026. And we're promoting with the private sectors or universities and colleges to offer the online schools or programs for women to get the skills through these courses. And of course, the educational institutions like universities emphasize educations in data science or AI skills, and I believe these courses will be attractive ones for women and children too.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm going to turn to this question that has 12 votes, and it says, when moments of self-doubt creep in during your pivotal journey, how did you turn this around and build the self-esteem and other emotional skills that bring you closer to driving the results? Any one of you?
My former colleague at the Economic Development Board, this happened maybe about 25 years ago, and she said the best thing, and I leave it with you if it's helpful to you. It says, doubt the doubt. Doubt the doubt, yeah. And just last week in Davos, there was gathering of women leaders, and they said something that was really funny. People were doing introduction, and one of the women stood up and said, everyone's introduction is very boring. We state our names, we state our specific roles, and say, no. If this was, and I don't mean this, I'm just repeating what was said at that session. I don't mean this in a denigrating way towards men. She says, if men were introducing themselves, they would talk about their achievements and what they have accomplished for their organization. So she said, we're going to do all our introductions differently. We're going to start, by introducing ourselves and the contributions that we have made. I thought that was really quite interesting. So doubt the doubt and start thinking about what is it that we have been doing and maybe less of what we have not been able to do.
Very nice, Minister, but I'm sure there are also pivotal moments for the other ladies.
I really the 2 points really echo with me, because that's actually a Harvard study. I think that, I can't remember the actual statistics, that interview basically these Harvard Business School graduates, and for male, 80% believe they are top of the entire class. And for female, there were only 20% who say they believe they're top, which is statistically obviously not true, but I think there is a little bit of general kind of perception that you kind of constrain yourself. I think it's quite important, as a leader, that you always keep the momentum. Right? Especially as a CEO, we have to be always on. As Singaporeans, you know what's on is, because you're talking to different people, you're solving problems all the time. As I tell my executives, your job is to solve problems. If there's no problem, then I can just go home and play. So you have to be not burdened down by the problems, and you need to cycle yourself, and different people have different ways. You can run, you can switch, but every time that you're in, you gotta make sure that you, as a leader, you are there because you have to lead. If you give up, then that's the rest, right? So I think that's really quite important. The one thing that I want to share about doubting is that you have to be confident of who you are and who you are not. Every one of us is different. It's not just a man or woman different. Each one of us have our strengths and our needs, development areas. I know very clearly, what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do. And be confident about that and say it. I think a lot of time when you have to go, when the first I joined Ping An in China, it's very different from McKinsey. I come back every weekend. Every Friday, I would fly back to Singapore from Shenzhen through Hong Kong. And every Monday morning, I would fly back, right? And everyone was very worried because, does that mean you work less? Why are you so special that you do that? I make that very upfront. Everyone, including my boss and all my colleagues and all my teams know that. It's not a problem, right? You can reach me, and etc. But you have to be confident about that. Even how we dress, right? I have purple hair, which is very unusual. It actually violates many of the dress code when I first joined, but it's okay. After that, you are confident about who you are, and then as long as you are competent in what you do, it will be recognized, and it will shape new style of leadership, and also encourage others in your team to be able to do so. Yeah.
What about you, Ms. Bolo, and then Minister Karen?
Thank you. I think the first fact we have to accept, especially I think that was asked by a young girl, the question was, and maybe voted by young girls. Women has to work so much more than men to be in leadership position, to get appointed, and then to accept it. And that's the fact. That's fact everywhere around the world. There are many talented young girls, many talented women, hardworking, but I think that one thing is missing is bravery, because they have to think about their families, their children, what their parents think, what their community thinks. And this kind of things hold them back. So one of the things I was telling a young girl yesterday, that you have to be prepared to be brave. And obviously, I'm sure Minister Josephine or anyone experiences is that haters, a lot of people talking about your appearance, not judging you professionally, but judging you by your dress, your hair, a lot of things that men don't get judged by. And I think it's very important to have a preparation and to be brave and to show your bravery when it's necessary. And you need to have a courage to be brave, and you need to be brave for yourself as well.
Very nice. And Minister Karen, you know, Japan is a very conservative society. So how do you turn doubts into success?
Actually, in Japan, the female parliamentarians ratio is just less than 10%. So our female leaders are lacking in the area of political arenas. So we need to recruit more female leaders or female school children to be involved in politics or the policy making processes. That's what we are now doing, and we were working hard. It's about my story, but actually I lost the first election at the age of 32, but I didn't give up. So the key of success will be to continue until you get the success.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to ask for this final round, right? So to all our future leaders, young girls who are thinking of getting into leadership position, who are very interested and passionate about tech, what advice would you give them? I'll start with Minister Josephine.
I suggest that we are not looking for a bed of roses. We're looking for gardens of opportunities. And tech is definitely one of those gardens. Good luck.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Bolo?
I'll go back and repeat what I said. Be brave and go for it.
Very nice. Jessica?
I think be confident and pursue your passions.
Thank you. And Minister Karen from Japan, what words of advice to our young ladies out there?
I hope them to find role models. There are a lot these days.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, if you hear it loud and clear, digital is genderless, it is boundaryless, it's, literally without barriers. But what you have heard from our panel today is amazing. Doubt the doubts, be brave, step up and not just lean in. And make sure that you have the opportunities, that you pave the way, not just for your current generation of women, but the future generations as well. On that note, can we put our hands together? A big thank you to this amazing panel. And thank you, Minister Karen from Japan.